Did you know that in just 5 days the simmering conflict between Iran and Israel has erupted into a terrifying exchange of fire? As of this morning, Tuesday, June 17, 2025, Iran has launched its ninth wave of missile attacks, a relentless barrage that continued until dawn. This isn't a distant, contained skirmish, it's a rapidly escalating war between two of the Middle East's most formidable military powers. The situation has become so dire that it has captured the world's attention, with leaders scrambling to respond. The speed and intensity of these attacks signal a dangerous new phase moving beyond proxy battles and into direct, state-on-state confrontation that threatens to engulf the entire region. At its core, the problem is stark and simple. Iran and Israel are now directly attacking each other's sovereign territory. For years, their conflict was a shadow war, fought through intermediaries and covert operations. Now the shadows have receded, replaced by the glare of explosions in major cities. Iran has fired approximately 280 ballistic missiles, not just at military sites, but at densely populated civilian centers like the Gush Dan area and Haifa. Israel, in turn, has launched its largest assault on Iran in decades. This direct engagement changes everything, raising the stakes exponentially and making the path to de-escalation far more treacherous and complex. This conflict matters to everyone, regardless of where they live. The Middle East is a critical artery for the global economy, particularly for energy supplies. We are already seeing the impact as attacks target vital infrastructure. When an Iranian missile struck an oil refinery in Haifa, it didn't just kill 3 employees, it sent shockwaves through global markets. Brent crude futures surged by nearly 3% to over $76 a barrel. This volatility affects gas prices, shipping costs, and the economic stability of nations worldwide. The conflict is also a major geopolitical crisis, forcing world leaders like US President Donald Trump to cut short international summits to manage the fallout from Washington. The challenges emerging from this new reality are immense and multifaceted. On a political level, the international community is struggling to find a unified response, with tensions rising as nations are pressured to take sides. Militarily, the risk of a miscalculation leading to an even wider, more devastating war is terrifyingly high. The Pentagon is already repositioning assets, sending an additional aircraft carrier to the region. And most importantly, there is a looming humanitarian catastrophe. With both sides targeting civilian areas, the human toll is climbing daily, creating a crisis that aid organizations are struggling to address amid the chaos of active warfare. To comprehend the sheer intensity of the current crisis, one must look back at the decades of animosity that have defined the relationship between Iran and Israel. It wasn't always this way. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the two nations maintained diplomatic ties. However, the revolution transformed Iran into a theocratic republic, fundamentally altering its foreign policy. The new regime in Tehran adopted a staunchly anti-Israel stance, viewing it as an illegitimate state and an extension of Western influence in the Middle East. This ideological opposition became a cornerstone of Iranian policy, setting the stage for a long and bitter rivalry. Over the years, this ideological clash evolved into a so-called shadow war. Instead of direct military confrontation, the conflict played out through proxies, assassinations, and cyber warfare. Iran funneled support to groups hostile to Israel, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, using them to exert pressure and launch attacks. Israel, in turn, has been widely believed to be behind a series of covert operations targeting Iran's nuclear program, including cyber attacks and the assassinations of key Iranian nuclear scientists. This long-running, low-level conflict created a foundation of deep mistrust and normalized a state of perpetual hostility between the two powers. Several key events have served as stepping stones, escalating tensions and bringing us to this precipice. The targeted killings of high-ranking Iranian officials such as IRGC commanders and nuclear scientists have been perceived by Tehran as direct acts of war, demanding retaliation. Each Israeli strike aimed at thwarting Iran's nuclear ambitions only hardened Tehran's resolve and fueled its desire for retribution. Similarly, every rocket fired by an Iranian-backed proxy group into Israel was seen by Jerusalem as another justification for more aggressive action. This cycle of attack and counterattack has been steadily intensifying, shrinking the space for diplomacy and making a direct clash increasingly inevitable. The immediate trigger for this current full-blown conflict appears to be Operation Rising Lion, a massive Israeli military operation launched on June 13, 2025. This was not a limited surgical strike, it was the most significant Israeli assault on Iranian soil since the 1980s. The operation targeted over a dozen sites across Iran, including critical nuclear facilities and military installations. This bold and aggressive move crossed a red line for Tehran, representing a direct assault on its sovereignty and a clear attempt to decapitate its military and scientific leadership. Iran's leadership, facing immense domestic and international pressure, felt it had no choice but to respond in force, igniting the firestorm we see today. The scale and ambition of Israel's Operation Rising Lion cannot be overstated. Launched last Friday, it was a meticulously planned assault involving both the Israel Defense Forces and the Mossad intelligence agency. The operation was designed to achieve a singular critical objective: to dismantle Iran's nuclear capabilities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has since stated that the attacks have set back Iran's nuclear program by a very long time. The strikes hit key nuclear sites but also went further, targeting military installations and, crucially, the leadership of Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its scientific community. The operation was devastatingly effective in its aim to eliminate key figures. Among those killed were some of the most powerful men in Iran's military and scientific establishments. The list includes Hossein Salami, the commander of the IRGC, and Mohammad Bagheri, the chief of staff of the armed forces. The brain trust behind the nuclear program was also targeted, with prominent scientists Faridun Abbasi and Mohammad Mehdi Taranchi confirmed among the dead. These assassinations were not just tactical victories for Israel, they were a profound strategic blow designed to cripple Iran's military command structure and its nuclear progress for years to come, sending a clear message of Israeli dominance. Iran's response was swift, furious, and indiscriminate. Faced with what it viewed as an unprecedented act of aggression, Tehran unleashed a torrent of ballistic missiles. Unlike past retaliations that focused on military targets, these recent barrages have deliberately targeted densely populated civilian areas in central and northern Israel. The clear intent is to inflict maximum psychological and physical damage on the Israeli populace. This shift in strategy marks a terrifying escalation, as it demonstrates a willingness to abandon any pretense of avoiding civilian casualties and to engage in total warfare. The attacks have turned the skies over Israeli cities into a battlefield for missile defense systems. A particularly dramatic incident that highlights the potential for this conflict to spiral further out of control was the Iranian missile strike on a major oil refinery in Haifa. This attack killed 3 employees and caused a massive fire, underscoring the vulnerability of critical energy infrastructure on both sides. Israel had previously struck Iran's main gas depot and one of its largest oil refineries near Tehran, igniting a huge blaze visible across the capital. These tit-for-tat attacks on economic lifelines not only threaten to cripple each nation's economy, but also risk a catastrophic environmental disaster. Each strike on an energy facility serves as another dangerous escalation, pushing both nations further down a path of mutual destruction. Amid the strategic calculations and geopolitical maneuvering, the most tragic outcome of this conflict is its devastating impact on ordinary people. The death tolls are, honestly, a stark reminder of the human cost of this war. As of Tuesday morning, reports indicate that at least 24 people have been killed in Israel, with nearly 600 injured by the relentless missile barrages. On the other side, the numbers are far higher. Israeli strikes have reportedly killed 224 people in Iran, a figure that includes not only military leaders but also civilians caught in the wide net of the attacks. These numbers, represent families torn apart, futures destroyed, and communities living in constant fear. The reality on the ground for civilians is a nightmare of sirens, explosions, and uncertainty. In Israel, the focus of Iranian missiles on populated centers like the Gush Dan area has turned daily life into a lottery of survival. In Iran, the situation is equally grim. Following Israeli warnings for 300,000 people to evacuate parts of Tehran, massive lines of traffic have clogged the city's main arteries as terrified residents attempt to flee. This mass exodus is complicated by the fact that, unlike in Israel, Tehran lacks a widespread system of public bomb shelters. Citizens have been instructed to seek refuge in underground parking lots, a desperate measure that offers little protection against sustained heavy bombardment. The psychological toll is immense, amplified by attacks that seem designed to terrorize. On Monday, an Israeli airstrike hit the headquarters of Iran's state television during a live broadcast. The attack plunged the set into darkness, killed a news editor and an administrative staff member, and sent a chilling message that nowhere is safe. For Iranians watching at home, the interruption of a familiar news program by a real-time explosion in their capital was a moment of profound shock. Similarly, for Israelis, the constant threat of missile strikes instills a pervasive anxiety that disrupts every aspect of normal life, from going to work to sending children to school. This escalating violence is creating a humanitarian crisis that will have long-lasting consequences. The damage to civilian infrastructure, homes, hospitals, and utilities will take years and billions of dollars to repair. The displacement of hundreds of thousands of people creates an immediate need for food, shelter, and medical care, straining the resources of both nations and international aid organizations. Beyond the physical destruction, the conflict is sowing deep seeds of hatred and trauma that will make future reconciliation even more difficult. The children growing up in the shadow of this war will carry its scars for a lifetime, perpetuating the cycle of violence for another generation. In summary, the direct military conflict between Iran and Israel represents a grave turning point for the Middle East, and, honestly, for the world. We have moved from a long-simmering shadow war into open, state-on-state hostilities, marked by devastating missile strikes and targeted assassinations. The conflict was ignited by Israel's Operation Rising Lion, a large-scale assault on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure, which in turn provoked a massive and indiscriminate retaliatory missile campaign from Tehran against Israeli population centers. This dangerous escalation threatens not only regional stability, but also the global economy, which is already reacting to attacks on critical oil and gas facilities. Achieving a peaceful resolution appears incredibly difficult at this moment. The deep-seated ideological animosity, cultivated over more than 4 decades, provides a fragile foundation for trust or negotiation. Both sides seem locked into a path of escalation. Prime Minister Netanyahu has vowed that the operation is not short and is aimed at dismantling Iran's nuclear program, while also noting the very weak state of the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, Iran's leadership, having suffered significant losses, is under immense pressure to demonstrate strength and avenge its dead. U.S. President Donald Trump has urged both sides to get a deal done, but the rhetoric from Tehran and Jerusalem suggests a focus on military solutions over diplomatic ones. The potential for this conflict to widen is the most pressing concern for the international community. The Middle East is a complex web of alliances and rivalries, and a sustained war between Iran and Israel could easily draw in other nations and non-state actors, leading to a regional conflagration. The U.S. is already increasing its military footprint in the area, a move that could either act as a deterrent or make it a target. The global stakes are incredibly high, with the stability of energy markets, international shipping routes, and the very framework of nuclear non-proliferation hanging in the balance as this crisis unfolds. As we stand on this precipice, the future is profoundly uncertain. The path forward is clouded by anger, fear, and a desire for retribution on both sides. Will international pressure be enough to pull these two nations back from the brink, or are we witnessing the opening stages of a prolonged and devastating war? The answer will have consequences that resonate far beyond the borders of Iran and Israel. Now, more than ever, it is crucial to stay informed and to seek out credible information to understand the complexities of this rapidly evolving situation. What do you think will happen next in this dangerous confrontation?